This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. All right, folks. Turn your radio down, turn your radio down, turn your radio down. Okay, for those of you, for the $1 million question, does anyone know what movie that's from? Jim?
Low Down Dirty Shame.
Oh, well, let's see. Let's see if the judges will give you the point, because I think you messed up the title by one word. Do you know what the word is?
Shame.
Oh, the name of the movie is A Low Down Dirty Shame. That's one of my favorite movies, by the way. I love that movie with Wayman. He is hilarious. Girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
My favorite part of the movie is when when he gets revenge back on Wayman, because remember when he got caught in the bed with Wayman, and then he goes to Wayman's job because he needs help, and then he goes and pretends like he's messing with Wayman, and
Yes.
the boyfriend is there, and he slaps him. Oh man, I wish I could find that on YouTube and play right now. That thing is so hilarious. Oh, by the way, folks, I'm so rude. This is Jonathan St. James, along with my partners in crime. Not literally crime, but you know what I'm talking about. Is Jim and Donnie
Hey.
St. James. Say hello to the people out there.
Well, hello.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Okay, and folks, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, yes, it is true. It is confirmed. Jim is currently at Camp Crystal Lake auditioning to be the next Jason Voorhees. So that's where he's at right now. He's auditioning. He's about to kill some camp counselors. So beware. If you're in the area of Camp Crystal Lake, get out, because you're doomed. You're all doomed. All right, enough of that. All right, what's going on in the world? I don't know. Oh, freaking this movie In the Heights is out. Everybody's talking about it. Of course, I made a pun on it, and I called it. I put took the movie poster and put like a crossed out the height and put on there In the Hazeltons, and of course. You have to either live in Pennsylvania near Hazleton or West Hazleton, or you got to be super duper New York Dominican, because for those of you who know, that is a huge concentration of Dominicans live in Hazleton and West Hazleton. So that's the joke. And some people get it because they understand what I'm talking about. And I know Jim knows about the area, so he definitely will understand it, because he rides on the Dominican bus, as I call it.
Yes.
Yes. For those of you who don't know what the Dominican bus is, and if you're not from, of course, the Washington Heights Inwood area, you're not Dominican, you don't live in the parts of Pennsylvania that the Dominican bus goes to. This is basically a bus that generally goes in the area, through the northern part of Pennsylvania, Poconos area. There's a big concentration of towns and Hazleton and West Hazleton is one of the areas that a lot of Dominicans have moved to. There are other areas, but those are the ones that I know of, that automatically I know people who've lived there or live there now. It's funny. You got like Allentown. A lot of these places, a lot of Puerto Ricans live in Allentown. So it's like the little Latin America out in Pennsylvania in certain parts. Right, Jim? Am I lying?
No, you're not. It's definitely true, especially Allentown and Hazleton. Allentown I went to, that thing blew up with a lot of Puerto Ricans and Hispanic people from when I used to go there in the early 90s. That place just exploded.
Yeah. If you want to find Razor Ramon, he's living in Allentown right now. El Jefe. Yo, man. This is Razor Ramon.
Horrible. This place horrible.
Oh, man. Listen, those are the best times of wrestling. They had the worst stereotypical people on there. That's the only thing. Man, if they did now what they did back then in wrestling would be canceled, because they had the most stereotypical for every group, man. To think about it, even as recent as Crime Time, they couldn't do that in 2021. They would be protesting WWE if you put a group like Crime Time. Oh no. Mm-mm. The Harlem Heat. Oh no.
No,
Mm-mm.
definitely not. Definitely not.
That could not work. You couldn't get away with the stuff they had. Islam, the Iron Sheik. You can get the Iron Sheik going now,
You
and all
know,
these guys.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, they actually
gimmicks like that. Yeah.
like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they had a Italian guy play a Muslim person, and he had literal terrorists as his like backup.
Yeah. So imagine they did that now. What everybody be protesting? They be protesting that in a
Definitely.
millisecond. You know, that's the only thing with current society is, you know, I mean, I like to be offended in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yes, 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 yes.
You know, I didn't mind the over the top racial jokes and stuff like that, but you can't do those things anymore. It's very sad. You know, you used to have a thick skin. You used to be able to say things that, I mean, now people would deem as offensive, but I mean, it was funny. You know, it's one thing if you said something that was on the offensive side, but it would be funny. You know, it's another thing to say something and it's not funny and not get a laugh and it's offensive.
Right.
This is another
Yeah.
thing that you're saying something in humor that I guess if you didn't have a sense of humor, you would be offended. So yeah. So anyway, let's see what else is going on in the world. That's all I can think of really. Is it a slow world lately? There's not much fun things going on, so I can't even say a whole lot of about what's going on in the world. But also, I have started a new segment. I didn't post it yet. I don't know if I'm going to re-record it, and that's the yeses and nos. I think that's going to be a weekly thing that I do, basically talking about yes and nos. And for those of you who will see it later on, I probably will post it after this show. But the first inaugural episode will be about selfies. Because ladies, I'm sorry. Guys, I don't know what kind of selfies guys take because I hardly ever see them doing it. But ladies, you and these mirror selfies in 2021, you've got to do better. Your selfies are, as they say back in the 90s, crisscross, wiggity, wiggity, whack. Or miggity, miggity, whatever, you know. Oh, it was wiggity, wiggity. They were miggity, miggity, mac. I'm saying wiggity, wiggity, whack. That's what I'm saying. Because inside, yeah, that's how they said it. Okay. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. I was just my thoughts are misinformed for a second because they do say miggity, 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 mac, daddy. And then they say, because inside out is wiggity, 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 whack. So, okay, I was right. All right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't mess that up. Okay. All right. Yeah. Before I forget, let me give a shout out to my niece, my whatever you call it, below the second generation niece. I don't know what the hell you call those, great niece, whatever that is. Shamia. She's graduating from high school. Congratulations to her.
Congratulations.
She got her driver's license. So I said I would be guaranteed to stay out of the streets when she's driving. But she got a driver's license. Very proud of her. So I know she's planning her college move. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what happened to Jim over there. He got disconnected real fast. Hopefully he'll come back on. Yeah, but she graduated and she's ready to do good things. Okay, Jim, welcome back. I don't know what's going on with you over there. Are you moving again? Did they kick you out of the location? I guess you're muted. You're muted. As Kevin Samuels say, unmute yourself.
Yeah,
that was a good impression.
I have to move.
Now, where do you move to now? Where do you go?
Go find someplace suitable where there's a signal.
Okay. So we may lose Jim. I don't know what's going on there. You know, it looks like we lost him because he froze. Oh no, he's there. He is.
I see him popping in.
He's moving slowly over there. See what happens? Wi-Fi in the middle of nowhere.
McDonald's Wi-Fi, yes.
That's
McDonald's
what happens.
Wi-Fi.
Are you on the camp itself? Where are you? Are you on the camp?
I'm on the campgrounds.
Okay.
And you know, it's really remote, so I'm surprised I actually got a signal. But
well, I guess they need a signal because you know when the freaking kids and the camp counselors are getting killed, they gotta Wi-Fi for help.
Actually, there is a Wi-Fi section, but it's so overloaded because everybody else is using it.
Yeah, because I'm sure all these brace face kids
Please. Well, I mean, they're better survivalists than most kids. I'll give them that much.
Oh, now that I can yeah, let me talk about this. So it's interesting. So recently I've had some weird like situations on Facebook. I had some people request me. So, me, I'm I don't care. It's freaking ET can come from outer space and request me. I'll add ET. So some lady, she, I don't know how to even explain this. She started sending me messages. So, I'm talking, whatever, seeing what this lady had to say. And it was very weird because, they ask you these questions. I mean, this happened to me a few times already. So I'm getting to see the pattern here. So I've gotten these friend requests and they talk to you. They're like, hey, how you doing? They ask you a little bit of questions about your life. And then somehow they're able to redirect the conversation back to themselves. And then what they do is they talk about like work. So they're like, oh, do you have a job? And I'm like, yeah, I have a job. And then, usually I humor people. So I'm like, so what do you do? And then, they'll say something like, oh, I'm, I don't have a job. I'm unemployed. And, or I work in a store, but they don't pay a lot of money. And it's just like some economic, hardships. So anyway, to this one specific person, it was weird. So she did something very weird. She was like, oh, in my free time, I like to take photos of myself. And she was like, would you like to see a photo that I took? And I'm like, okay, sure, what is it? So she sends me a nude photo. So she took like 2 naked photos of herself. And I'm like, oh, okay. That wasn't what I was expecting, but all right. So you send these new photos. That's not the problem there. So I didn't really have anything to say. And it was really awkward to me because I don't, so she wanted me to like, refer, like, what do you think of the pictures or whatever? But I was like, I feel uncomfortable talking about it because I wasn't asking you to send me new photos. So it's bizarre that you're sending me new photos. And then shortly after that, I find out why she sent it. So what she was doing is she was trying to sell me the photos. So she said, oh, I'll give you photos. And then, but she sent the photos and then she was asking for money. So I was like, money? What? First of all, okay. So I wanted to see, what did you need this money for? So, so sometimes I ask questions, even though I don't have any intention to really jump down the rabbit hole, but I wanted to know. So she said, what did she say? Something like food for her kid or something. It was like something about food. I think she said she wanted to get some food to eat or food for the house or whatever. So while she's telling me this, I'm like, you know what? I need to see where this I'm curious. So I go online and I'm checking like the cost of living, where this person live and everything. So I was like, okay, let me just get a sense of what's going on here. So there was this website like expatriates or something like, like expats, where they give them the information of how much food and all these items that people need would cost. So I looked into that and then I saw. And so I said, okay, let me ask this question because I don't want her to know that I already know the answer to the question that I'm asking. So I said, let me ask this question. So I said, how much is it that you need? And then she was asking for $100 US. I was like, $100. So I had already researched how much it was. And man, this was $100. That's thousands of Dominican pesos. So I was like, this lady is crazy. So I just ignored her because I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. So I ignored her. I didn't respond to her. And then after that, she decided she was going to jump on my my timeline. Like I posted something, and then she posted something like that I was a traitor or some crazy, it was like some weird thing, like calling me a traitor and stuff like that because I didn't send any money. And I was like, you know what? This lady's crazy. I'm just going to block her. So it was just weird. The dynamics there, a lot of these third world countries where people need money, and I guess some of them desperately need it, and then some of them just want it because they don't, they're tired of living the lives that they live. So I guess if you're desperate for money, I guess, and I wanted to, but it's none of my business. So I was like, I'm not going to tell her, why don't you just go on OnlyFans and make some money? But I didn't do that. I was like, let me just leave it alone, just walk away. That's what I did because it made me very uncomfortable. One, that she sent a nude photo because I didn't ask her to send nude photos. I wasn't expecting that. I thought maybe she was talking about modeling, because everybody wants to be a model and an actress this day and age, or a content creator. So I thought maybe, well, she had some modeling. So I was like, okay, if you want to show me modeling photos, whatever, but you showing nude photos that are not even nude modeling, they're like, so, it's like, and I've asked her, I said, is this what you do online? Do you send pictures to people and ask for money? And then she was like, no, but I'm inclined to believe that's what she does. Because, the human nature telling me people don't do things that they're uncomfortable doing to somebody that they don't know. So I'm like, you don't know me. You don't really know anything about me, and you're willing to send nude photos of yourself. So that has me believing you send nude photos of yourself to people. Now, I don't know if people buy them, but clearly you sell them or you try to sell them. So that was my interesting conversation there. So the moral of the story is look, I don't know. You just like and subscribe. That's it. Like my pictures, check me out on YouTube if you can. That's pretty much it. Cause I can't deal with all that extra stuff. People's begging for money. And there's a lot of begging for money. It's like, it's always the same way. And I'm like, where do these people come from? It's weird. And then it's weird because, like I said, I don't bother people. I don't bother anybody. If you request me and I add you, I go on with my life. If you post a picture that's nice, oh, that's nice, like or whatever, laugh or whatever the situation is. I don't go on people's DMs and stuff like that. And the weird thing is, it's weird. So I don't know what is going on in Dominican Republic, but they will have a conversation with you and then they would say, talk to me on WhatsApp or take a picture of yourself now. So apparently there's some issue with people being fake, having fake. I guess it's big there. I don't know too much. I know people do have fake accounts and I understand that. And I tell these ladies, I'm like, you think I'm fake? I said, if I was fake, listen, my pictures would be a lot better looking than what I'm using right now. I wouldn't be using these photos if I was trying to be fake. Like, really, give me a freaking break. I would get the best looking guy I could find and use his pictures. If I was trying to have a fake profile, I wouldn't have a picture of myself. I'm just everyday average looking guy. I'm not this freaking off the wall handsome guy. So if my purpose was to get over on women and get them to foolishly be interested in me, the pictures I'd be showing would definitely not be my own. That's just first and foremost. I don't get people with these assumptions. I mean, I understand that people do that, but sometimes you got to look at it realistically. What is it that you see that says anything fake here? And then you also got to see as your association with people, like who's responding to you. Do you have pictures with those people? Stuff like that. All right. Okay, folks, enough of that. So I wanted to have a follow-up show today because hopefully Jim will get himself together because right now he's a hot class mess right now. We try to keep it low-key rated so, people don't complain. A hot class mess. And now he's frozen in time. I'm going to call him Elsa because he's frozen. Yeah, there he is. There's Elsa. Mm-hmm.
I am not frozen. Am I frozen? I can hear you just
Yeah,
fine.
you're frozen. Your face is frozen.
Oh, wow.
I can hear you. You just can't move. Now you're stuck in a really weird smile, looking really creepy. Creepy Jim right there. Look, you're really falling into that Jason Voorhees role very well.
Oh, stop it.
All right, folks. So I'm going to start this show. All right. Why was I looking at my phone? Because I wanted to get the exact. Oh, yeah, I already said it. Okay, folks. I wanted to do a follow-up show. The topic of the show today, excuse me, I mean to yell into the mic, but the topic of the show today is What did I say that was again? See, I done lost my place here. I'm at the
Not
wrong.
learning from red flags.
Not learning for you. Thank you. Let me start that again. Hold on a second. Let me start that over again. All right, folks. Hold on one more time. The topic of today's show is not learning from red flags. Yes. So, people, we've had a previous show, and the show was talking about not learning from red flags. And here's the thing: red flags are evident warnings to when you meet people. These are things you should look out for when you talk about the possibility of having a bad relationship with a person. So we had a previous show. We've talked about those things, and people often ignored it. And even the people that listened to the show that was moved by the things that we said kept on not listening to the red flags. So here we are once again talking about red flags, people. All right. So one of the red flags, of course, that we talked about is people's demeanor, the way they talk, how they interact with folks and stuff like that. So here's a problem. When you ignore red flags, what happens is you make excuses for bad behavior. That's first and foremost, because when you meet someone, you're attracted to them, you want to see the best in them. And that's the problem with relationships. We want to fit people into the ideology that they're good people and see the best at them because we're severely attracted to them. That's usually how it happens. When you meet someone that you're not attracted to, believe me, them red flags pop up right away like pimples on a teenager. So, and that's no lie. So when you're not attracted to someone, when they're not cute, they don't ring your bell and they give you problems, they're getting the exit real fast. So here's the problem. You meet someone, you don't see or notice or identify the red flags in them. And so you get into this relationship with them. And depending on what how they function within the beginning times of the relationship, that dictates how long you tolerate them. And that's a problem because we all know the dynamics of relationships with men and women make things a lot harder. So, people are misguided about time, right? So, the way men and women function in society is differently. Men function later in life, women function sooner in life. So we seldom meet up, in terms of dating. It's very rare now that you find meaningful relationships with people of the same age. It's very difficult. So the problem is, one is the maturity of the person. So that's what I want to talk about. So we talk about maturity. So how does maturity come? And that's what we need to talk about. And that's what we'll talk about before we actually get into the consequences of not looking or identifying the red flag. So let's talk about how maturity is gained. So of course, maturity most of the time is a trained characteristic through whether it would be parents, grandparents, siblings, or friends. So a lot of homes only have one parent. So, and here's LaDonna Marie coming on in. If I can get her in this room, my mouse is acting up a little bit. LaDonna Marie, are you coming in? Okay, let's see if she makes it in. Oh, there she is with her fancy photo. Hello, LaDonna Marie. Can you hear us? If you can hear us, blink once. Okay, I heard something there. She flashed out real fast. Is the cameras coming on? No, the voice is coming on. LaDonna Marie, you there?
I'm here. How are you?
We're good. We just started getting into the show topic, and that it was Donnie, what's the topic again?
Not learning from red flags.
Not learning from red flags. I can't help it. I'm having a senior moment now. I cannot help it.
Hey, y'all.
Oh, nice to see you there.
Hey, good to hear from you. How are you?
It's good to see you all. It's good to see y'all. I'm good. Y'all good?
Okay, so we're gonna put this on pause for a second. So we need to know what's going on. I feel you been so busy lately. You got to catch us up on what's going on with you.
So guys, I just released the book. It just actually came out on the 12th. And so I have been it's been a lot of like, stress, witchcraft.
What's the name of the book?
Everything's been going on, distraction.
Hold on. What's the name of the book?
The Journey, the Path, the way I see it.
Yes. Okay. I know what the name of the book is.
Yeah,
I just want whoever's listening.
Oh, so the book is called The Journey, the Path, the way I see it. It's my poster that I have behind me. Let me see.
Look at that.
I can't see myself. Okay, yeah. So this is the poster that I have, The Journey, the Path. But I want to tell you that this is just like how they say it's normal time when you're giving birth, because I believe I had to like really toil with this book. I know that it's going to be amazing, but it seemed like everything just stopped until the book was finished, because it had to be done in the way that it needed to be done so that it could impact the lives that need to be impacted. And so it's finished, and I have a little bit of breath of fresh air that I can breathe again.
That sounds good. Have you been anywhere? Like, I know you usually do like pop-up shops and stuff like that. Have you been able to do that yet with this book?
Not yet. What I've done so far is I did a book tour, a virtual book tour, probably in the beginning of May. We talked about it a little bit on a book tour that's going to be airing. It's on YouTube on a channel. I can't remember the channel name right now, but they're going to be airing it consistently on their channel. And I've done a couple other interviews. They're going to be coming out later. And so they were pre-recorded. So I've, talked about it a lot. I was really excited that was my first interview for the book. And I've gotten one review of it, because I had a person to review it for me. And so now I have some other people that are looking at it to review it. But, it's out there. It's a long time coming. It's been 6 years. That guy was pushing me to write it and to give my audience more of me. And we talked about it on the show a little bit. Most of some of the things that I talk about with my life, in which I feel comfortable talking to people about it all the time, because I just have to be that authentic leader. But I think that this book is a collection of them, because people will always see your glory, but they don't know your story. And so that's the most important thing of helping them to see the relationship, the journey, the path, and the relationship. And so I pray that it does everything that it's supposed to do, and it impacts the lives that it's supposed to impact.
And I just want to say that Jesse Jackson will be very proud of you. Glory and story. He would love it. So how much is the book? So when people want to buy it, how much does the book cost?
So the paperback is $15.99, 16 books. I will have a hard copy that is coming out. The hard copy is going to be $22. And the ebook is out now on Amazon as well. It's $5.99, roughly just $6. Okay. So it's out there. They can pick it up.
I'm definitely going to get the ebook today as soon as I finish this show. The only thing I always forget is how, it's tricky to do the ebook, because I think you got to go to the website and do it, because I know I try to do it from the app, and the app doesn't let you buy it. So you got to go, I think, to the website, and then you get it on the Kindle. I can get it on the Kindle. That's what I use, the Kindle. And then that's how I have your, whatever, the other book that you have, I have it on the Kindle.
Yeah. You have to go online and purchase it, and then it'll send it to wherever you.
Oh, so I have to go to your website. You can't get it through Amazon. I have to get it through your.
You can get it through Amazon, but I also put it on my website as well.
Okay, so let me ask you that question. So when they I'm getting all excited. Hold on a second. Oh, let me calm down. All right. So when they go to your site to do an ebook, how does that work? I've never known about that before. How do you do that?
Well, see, the ebooks come as PDFs. So you'll be able to just download it and read it. So it'll come as a PDF.
Okay, so so a PDF, and then how do you get it to your phone? Like, what would you have to do to get it to your phone?
So, I mean, if you have something that you can like a different reader that you can, most of the time people will send it to their computer, you know what I'm saying? So that they can read it on the computer, like the ebooks that come from
Oh,
the,
okay.
yeah, so the
Okay.
ebooks that come from our sites are just a PDF. Now you can read them on your phone if you have some type of, you know what I'm saying, like Microsoft Word or different things that you can pull it up.
So I'm just going to tell everybody, for the people who have the iPhone, because I know what you're saying. Now that you said it, I remember how to do that. So
Yeah.
you can actually, to get the PDF, you can email it, right?
Yeah.
And then in the email, the PDF in the email, all you have to do is save it as a file. And there's a way, I think Microsoft, not Microsoft, no, excuse me, the books, I think you can put it in books and
Yeah.
open it and read it from there, because I've done that in the past.
Yeah, and so yeah, you can do that on your page. I just had that on there because most people, I'm still waiting to get the books, back to autograph them. Thank you for everybody that actually bought a copy, pre-ordered. But most of the people, when they want it instantly, I started doing the ebooks on my site so they can start reading it. You know what I'm saying? Right then, and like you said, you can go to Amazon. It's over there as well, so you can go to your Kindle or your phone or whatever, your pad, your iPad, or whatever you have.
So, quick question: do you
Yeah.
get more money when they order it directly from the site as opposed to Amazon? Because I don't want to. If I don't have to, if you could get more money from me going to your site and doing it, I'd rather go to your site and do it than go to Amazon.
Yes, when you go to my site, that's when I get the most money back.
Okay.
I love, because most people like Amazon, so that they'll go over to Amazon, and surely it'll be popping up in different places. Like, I have some books even that are on Walmart on the online. So I have some ebooks that are over there. You can go purchase them from Walmart. So it'll be popping up in certain other places. But yeah, I always like people to go to my site, because I'll, you'll get an autographed book. And then I'll get, more of the purchase prices will come back to me to help to buy more books and more books.
That's wonderful. I'm definitely going to do all of those things there. I'm definitely going to get an ebook today, because I could, in my commute to work tomorrow, I could start reading it. The stories that you tell are just about life, about anything, even your children's book. There's the things that you talk about is so relatable. And I think that's what makes it fantastic, because when I read it, even though you're a woman, I can get transplanted and actually feel wherever you're telling, whatever tale or story that you're telling, I can almost feel like I'm you.
Yeah.
And I'm there, or I'm the character, like in the children's book. I can feel myself in the place of the character and actually understand what the person is going through at the time. It's amazing. I mean, that's the definition of a good book, is you can actually put yourself into what the person is saying, or the author, depending if it's a personal book or if it's a character. I had there was another book, Shaka Khan, actually some years ago. I had bought her book and her autobiography, and that was like a book like that too. Like the stories that she told about herself was jaw-dropping and amazing. That sometimes when you see people, like you said, the glory, but you don't know the story.
Right.
So that's such an amazing thing to even think about.
Yeah, and I pray that, and I also think that I think it's gonna be like a part 2, because I want to say I start thinking about so many other things that after it was over with, that could help people to understand life. And see, that's the way I give all the glory to the Lord, because I mean, he started this with me at the age of 14. So being able to have people to say just what you said, that the readers can feel, and they can actually, you said, put themselves in that moment, to have your own aha moment. Because I've never wanted a person just to take my account, but I want you to be able to read it and to understand, and then you place it in your life where where it needs to be, so that you can get the most like I said, knowledge about whatever your situation is. And that's so great. And as a writer, it's so, even as an author, it's so good to hear, because that's with the intention that I write, to impact people's lives in a way that they make it their own.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things about this book, because it was more on the personal side. I was like, Lord, this was a new look for me. And because in the very beginning, I just wanted to be the writer. I didn't even really want to be the person up front. I loved hiding behind the scenes
Mhm.
and writing. So, this is going to be something new. I learned very early on that I'm not everybody's author, because even with one of my second book, I had a lady who had given me a 1-star review, but I had 58 5-star reviews.
Right.
And so she was the one person, but she started in the very beginning, and then after everyone else read it, years later, she went back and took her 1-star review off. And for the longest, that plagued me, because I was like, okay, so she didn't like the book. But it was only because I had to identify that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And the writing, some people have not experienced what other people have experienced. And so when you go to those stories and you make them your own, it helps you to heal from what you've been through. And so if you're an outsider and you've never been through those situations, it will seem foreign to you. And so that was just something that I had to learn along the way. And so I'm excited. I want to
Yeah.
say I was nervous too.
I could definitely understand about that, about the 1-star and everything, but it's so funny. It's so ironic that you say that, because I actually posted today online, and I said something like, oh, I don't want to, let me see if I can find it, because I don't want to paraphrase and then say it all wrong. And let me see if I could even find it, because stuff just goes by so fast online in this day. Oh, here it is. Somebody liked it recently. Says, I always say, never focus on the people that dislike you, especially at the expense of those who do. So,
Right.
it's so funny that you say that, because I was thinking about that today, because so many times a million people can love you, and a lot of times people focus on the one person that's like anti you. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it in life. People are going to paint you a villain or the bad person, even if you do nothing to them. There's just those people, they just, for whatever reason, whether it's valid to them or they just like hating people. There's a lot of people in the world that are like that. They don't like just because they got to be the person not to like something. So sometimes it's not even valid. Sometimes it's just people just have that spirit inside of them where they just hate everything.
Yeah. And I learned that. I've learned that, and I'm gonna tell you that it has gotten easier over the years, but you always have to stay positive. And that's just one of the things that I have to realize. I know sometimes it's easier said than done. So for me, I have reminders. I have reminders on my phone that pop up. I have reminders on most of the mirrors. I'm a sticky note person. I have sticky notes everywhere. And so you do have to focus on the good. And I know y'all talking about negative comments. So what's the topic again? So we can segue.
Right. So we're talking about, again, Donnie, could you help me out here? One more time. Oh, you're muted, Donnie, you're muted.
Not learning from red flags.
Not running for red flags. So here's where we are. Now we could jump back into it. I was just so intrigued by, because the Donna Marie is always so busy. I always like to hear what she's doing, because, we miss her when she's not here. So like catching them. All right. So here's where we are. And I guess hopefully you'll be able to jump in on here. So we're talking about maturity, because the problem with relationships is, at one point, how mature at certain points in your life, the maturity. And I was basically starting off talking about where do you get your maturity from? And I was saying grandparents, parents, siblings, and friends. I mean, of course, there's a variation of other places where you can get those types of things from. But I'm just using that just an initial comments for discussion. So I guess I'd like to start this off, because we can put it on ourselves. So I'll start off with you. So I guess let's talk about you and your journey to maturity. How did that formulate in your life in terms of when it comes to relationships anyway?
So, and this is a very interesting topic, because we always want to make sure that we give people, like we said, we give them that authentic part of who we are. And so how that worked for me is, I think I've said most of the time before, I didn't have a guide on certain things, or how relationships should go, or how certain things, should be, or the proper maturation of maturation, how you pronounce it, of the way that things should go. And so for me, I think I end up learning what I didn't like by experiencing or learning from my experience. Because being in my town, and being not having all of the communications that I want, I didn't have a lot of mother-daughter talks about certain things. And so I was essentially in the beginning looking for love in all the wrong places, because I did not understand that the void that I had needed to be filled by the Lord. I still was looking for a person to fill it. And so therefore I was pushed by my emotions. Hence why I'm always helping people to get emotional healthy, and talking about emotional wellness and stability. So I was pushed by my emotions. So whatever I felt like, or I was driven by, whatever whim of emotion that I was caught up in. And so a lot of things I had to learn by way of experience. I had to learn, like, getting into relationships with, wanting to be in a relationship with a person, but they didn't treat you right. And so I'm saying to them, this is not proper how a relationship should go. We should call, or we should do this, or we should do that, or we shouldn't scream at each other, or we shouldn't, almost want to fight each other. Like, we shouldn't do these things, but then this is what is being presented. So I had to thus learn this is not what I want in the midst of being in it. And so at one point in time, I just had to, the Lord had to keep pulling me close to him and say, this is not where I need you to be. And then I had to tell myself, I want something more. And so as I began to heal myself, as I began to look at, see what was and what I did not want to happen, then I had to learn how to make better choices. Then I began to learn to see the red flags before they, as they appear, and not to sweep them under the rug, or not to constantly, go back and forth. I had to learn the hard way that I cannot change a person. A person has to want to change. There's something that you have to want to do on your own side. And so for me, it took me experiencing things that I didn't want to experience in order for me to learn that this is not where I should be. And so that's the way that I learned, learned of red flags, and learned how to identify red flags in even relationships. I know one time, I'll just, talk about one person. Back in the day, I was dating this guy, and I was a freshman in high school, and he was a senior. And there was this other girl who kept trying to get into our relationship. And I was just like, this is not the way this is going to go on. Like, I know she's trying to talk to you, but we're in a relationship. And if you're not going to stand up and say that, she can't come in, or you're not going to try to, distance yourself, then I'm going to exit myself. And so that was like the first time that I had ever stood up for me, saying, I'm not going to be a part of this because something's not right about it. But I want to tell you that what I just learned probably last year, and the Holy Ghost revealed this to me, that is when the enemy swooped in and made me feel that I was wrong, and that my standards were too high, and that I wasn't going to be able to find someone because my standards were too high. And so I had to deal with, feeling like, well, maybe I was wrong. well, maybe I just should, kept, telling him that, just see what he was going to do instead of just ending it. And so the enemy played on me being a strong person, me saying no to the red flags, because then I didn't get a lot of people who wanted to date me because they knew that I was not going to just go for anything. But being a 14-year-old and not having other people to tell you that you're doing right and this is the right thing, I thought that maybe it was wrong. And so, but now, now to date, I can still see that, so the wisdom that I had was before my time, because I didn't have a guide. I had the Lord saying, to me, go this way. And I had nobody else on my level to say, saying, we understand where you are, because most people just want to be in a relationship. Most people just want to have somebody to say, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, or, they just wanted to be in a relationship, but I didn't want that. I wanted something more.
Right. And that goes into adulthood too for many people. But here's a question that I mean, this is totally a little off base, but I'm just a little curious. So I wanted to ask this. That time in your life, was that memorable to you that you can recall that now? And the reason why I asked that is because, well, I wasn't a senior in high school. I think I was a senior in elementary school, but the girlfriend that I had was about to go into high school. I was like 12 and she was like 14 or whatever. And I know whatever we had, the relationship that was, she doesn't remember any of that. So, and whatever the last time, I think my sister was friends with her. And so my sister, she didn't even remember my sister. So I thought that was odd. And my sister and her were like best friends. So I was just curious, like, is that something, can you recall a lot from those times in your relationship or whatever was going on with him and you?
Not all of it, but I've always been a person who I've always been set apart. So my perspective has always been different, like from other people. And that was one of the main reasons. I mean, I was isolated as a teenager because of the way that I thought, because I didn't think like everybody else. So for me, and then for me, I didn't date a lot of people. I probably dated about 4 people on my hand, like, because I was one of those persons that I wanted who God had for me in the beginning. But at the same time, I had to grow into maturity of understanding people, learning not to be naive, learning, saying you got to listen to what people say and you got to look at their deeds. And so that was just one of the first things that the enemy had plagued on me, to kind of like have me to feel indifference about standing my ground. And so I remember that story because I was never one of the people who followed the leader. Like I was my own leader. And so even for me, the rest of my friends, they were dating, we all had senior boyfriends, but I wasn't going to go for some of the things that they went for. And I'm not saying that it was bad, but my decisions were just my decisions. So I don't remember all of them, but I know that was just like the first time in my life that I stood my ground, and I kind of went back and forth with it because, like I said, the enemy played on my emotions to let me, to make me feel like, maybe I was doing too much and my standards were too high and that I wasn't going to get anybody. I wasn't going to have a boyfriend. And so then that intense, like that worked on me because I was like, well, maybe my standards are too high. What I'm saying? Maybe I can, cut the people a break for a little bit, but I don't remember all of them, but just some of them. Cause like I said, I didn't date a whole lot of people, but it's just some things that are memorable because it helps me to know that I have to trust what God tells me and trust my instincts and not be persuaded by, like the surroundings and what other people do and what other people say. And that's kind of like, that's the reason why I've always kind of stood out and have been set apart. And back then, that set apart just made me feel like I was weird. But it actually, if I would have just stepped into it, it could have saved me a whole lot of heartbreak. If I would have just been who I am today back then.
All I'm going to say is that's 3 more people than I dated in high school. Wow. I won't even go further into that, but
Well, I
so
mean, that's just not even high school. That's probably like that's not like all my life.
oh yeah, dated 4 times in your whole life. What?
Right. And then the last one
Oh,
was
sorry.
was my ex-husband. I married him
Wow.
when we got out of college.
So that was
So
the fourth person?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Excuse me. Then I apologize.
see, yeah,
All
you
right.
probably had a lot of more dates in a lot
Well,
of
a lot of more dates, but way later in life. I'm gonna tell you. So my frame of thought was, my story is just very interesting. Of course, I come from a severe dysfunctional family, unfortunately, and didn't, and I guess I'll go into my maturity before I turn it over to Jim. So my maturity was very difficult because I didn't have parents at home. They were there for some years, but then they checked out. So the problem with my family was there's just too many kids in the house. Too many kids in the house. Everybody was doing whatever. There was no kids to focus on, unfortunately. And sometimes that's the bad side of having a big family. How do you raise kids in a big family? It's very difficult. So my parents checked out very early. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it was because of infidelity. I don't know if that was the reason, but at some point that became a reason with my parents. So they split. My father turned to drugs. My mother, you know, ran away with a man. There was no one around. So learning, having maturity, one, there was an instinctive maturity about myself, but that can only go so far because I just, you can only grow. I'm gonna sound like you. You can only grow from what you know. So you know things, and that's as far as your maturity can take you. But then, like you said, a lot of it is going to be either mentorship or learning through experience. So, of course, how did I learn? A lot of the times is through visual mentorship, which was I didn't know what the right thing to do, but the wrong thing was always in front of me. And I can say that by, I'm trying not to shout people out on here, but family members being engaged in the wrong type of lifestyle that ruined people's lives, got people hurt, arrested, killed, all those types of things that are involved. So when it came to relationships, of course, I wasn't at full maturity, but I had a knowledge of, well, what extreme behavior not to engage in. Because a lot of times kids can, teenagers can be in some very extreme interactions and relationships when they have boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. So that was the one thing that I had perfect. I was not going to be an extreme guy. But in terms of red flags, of course, because of a lack of mentorship guidance from a male figure or any parental roles, I had none. So this is my maturity came way later in life. When I say way later, when you're talking about the dating 4 people, that's kind of how long, it took for me to, it took a long time because who do you talk to? Even as I got older, there weren't a lot of grown folks that I was like, well, talk to me about relationship. They were poorly equipped to give advice about relationships too. So that's kind of where we were. So, all right, next up, Jim, you heard a little bit of my experience. You heard about LaDon Marie's. Without you giving me vertigo over there, shaking that phone back and forth, let's talk about it.
My experience is similar to both of yours. As an example, it's like a combination and then just a little bit of an offshoot. So my experience, my parents got divorced when I was 5. My father checked out and it was just my mother. I've learned from her what I didn't want in a relationship. The starting points of what I didn't want. She was kind of toxic, and it was just a bad experience, just from a male's perspective. So I knew what I didn't want.
I just didn't know what I truly wanted. And that kind of reverse ideology left me stranded because, from a guy's point of view, without my father around, I didn't know what I wanted. I was just there. Like, I just feel like everybody was just there. Girls were just there. If they like you, they like you. If you don't, they don't. I didn't date anyone in high school. And the sad part is I really didn't care. I was focused on something else, trying to do something in avoidance. Everything was avoidance for me. Avoidance of certain women, girls, interactions. It was just avoidance all around. My maturity came in way later, I think, after high school or at the end of high school, when I realized that some of my attitudes were too harsh or unnecessary. Some of them was just me trying to avoid people was very unnecessary as well. It was just a ball of confusion, and then everything came together at the end. But it's just that I had to realize I had to make decisions on certain things instead of avoiding it. I had to confront a lot of things, and most of it was my deficiency in interacting with people. That was my main weakness, was my interactions, and I had to confront and move forward with that, and to not be afraid to speak and talk and stuff like that. I was always strong enough to talk about what I didn't like, what I find offensive, stuff like that. But to talk like normally and converse with others and interact was hard. It was hard for me. It was, my avoidance theory. That's what I call it, avoidance theory. Was mostly what guided me, and it was just.
All right, Jim. So I see you got a nice friend looking over your shoulder there in the background. Who's that over there? Who's that? Cujo? Who's that back there?
That is Tigger. That is a friend's dog. I was hoping he would stay still, but he is.
They all up in the picture like,
no, guys, stay still. Hey, is it Tigger? Hey, Tigger.
Face all in the camera and everything. Look at
that. Dog. Dog. Oh my God. Yes.
All right. Okay. Okay, Donnie. So now we come on to you. So you've heard Donna, Marie, myself, and Jim. How did your journey start off until this point in time?
For me, it's kind of similar to what LaDonna said about experience. I just really had to I had to make some mistakes. And I think the one note that I always tell people is, like, mistakes are fine if you're able to commit to improving as a result of them. Say, like, you can fall, you can stumble, all that, but you have to actually learn something from it. And for me, a lot of maturity came by hitting some real lows with certain relationships, like going back to the same relationship a couple of times. Even if it wasn't the greatest decision, it actually did help me severely iron out exactly what I wasn't looking for, because I had an abundance of it. No shade at all, but yeah, I'd say hitting rock bottom, not the best thing to do, but it is a good learning experience.
All right. So, okay. So we kind of got a little fast forwarded there. Because that was definitely something that I would like to talk about later on in the show, but this all well, we'll sort of pivot according to your comments and get into the next thing. And I think the next important thing is to identify why people don't read red flags when they appear from them. And one, of course, is what we just talked about, is the maturity or rather lack thereof maturity. Because a lot of times when we are in relationships, it's very difficult to discern the things around us, because it is always, when you like someone, you want to find the best in them. And sometimes reality that even is in front of you is just not evident because there's a lack of maturity to understand. Even when you say, wow, this person did A, B, and C, they could be a cheater, they could be abusive, they could be heartless, whatever characteristics of a bad relationship a person could have. Most of the times, a majority of people think that it only happens to the other person, doesn't happen to you. So that creates a false sense of security when you meet someone because you like them and they appear to like you, but they have these things about them. Oftentimes you may know, but you have yet to identify. And that's the thing, because a lot of times we think life can't happen to us. You know, there's people there, they're like, I'm never going to get shot. I'm never going to get, my car is never going to get stolen. My home is never going to get broken into. And guess what? There's something that we think will never happen to us that happens to us. So the truth of the matter, we talked about maturity, or lack thereof rather, and a lack of maturity and understanding to the approach of relationships leads to us wanting to see the best in somebody that we're attracted to, whether it's infatuation, whether it's a version of love that we think we have for that person, or what have you. But I would say another issue that really comes along is insecurity. You know, a lot of times we refuse to see the red flags in people because we're insecure about ourselves. And sometimes we think that because no one else will like us. So this is your shot here. This person likes you. Oh, wow, this guy likes me, or this girl likes me. I may never ever get that shot again. Or it might be the popular guy, or situate, whatever the case, or there may not be anyone in the town that you live in, or, you know, there's a lot of factors in it. Afraid to be alone, you know, depending on your age. There's a lot of levels of insecurity that allows us to not stand up for what we believe in terms of relationships and what we think is acceptable or unacceptable in terms of red flags. So, Don Marie, did I say anything wrong there? Is this, you know, do you?
You said everything. That was great, because of course, you know, I got poems written about these things that you said.
You got one right there.
I was sitting there thinking about, like, I do have a poem in Lessons, Shattered Pieces Being Restored, called Insecurities. And it's basically talking about what you said. And I want to tell you that that's the reason why most people do, you know, saying stay in some relationships, is because it's a lack of love for themselves, and like knowing their worth. We talk about that a lot, and I could just talk about from my point of view, because the enemy had planted in my world at that time that I was not enough. And so just that whole encounter, he planted in my mind that I was not enough. And so that made me to lower my standards of what I would, you know what I'm saying, particularly how I would like to be treated. You know, I put up with a lot of stuff more than I probably should have. I want to say I do not want, you know, to say that I sanction this, but even, you know what I'm saying, sex. When you have sex with people, it brings an attachment to people, so you're already emotionally invested, and so that's like a lust and a love that you think that you have, and you hold on to someone because of things they may not be right. So that becomes, how we say in this time, like soul ties to a person, because of you are emotionally connected, you're physically connected, and then now mentally you're connected to, you know, to them, and just like you and them and all of the stuff that comes with them and everything that comes with you, you're connected. And so I want to say that, you know, when we decide, and I could just speak for myself, because I know back then, when I had that first official attack, and when that started to really play on me, when I did lower my standards, I got into a lot of relationships because I felt like I wasn't enough. I got into some relationships, and then the insecurities that we talked about, that played on me, that if I, you know, maybe, and one time before, I can even hear the enemy saying that this is all that you're going to, you know, get. So you might as well just go ahead and be in the, you know, in this relationship and that type of relationship. But I want to tell you that for me, I had to, the more that I was in those type of situations, like these are, you know, learning the hard way, like Donnie said, it was the longer I knew that this is not where I wanted to be. And so I began to grow up and say, you know, I would rather be by myself, learn my self-worth, learn how to love on myself, before I put myself in positions that would not be pleasing to me. And so a lot of people do stay in relationships. They stay in different places because they're trying to fill a void, because of the insecurities that they have. And then because it's lust, but it's not really love. You think that is love, but it's like, I got a poem that's written about that is love by another name, and it's lust, because it's just with your eyes, because there's no, if there's nothing but physical attraction. And if you take that away, then what else do you have? And that was one of the things that I talk about in, like, even in the book, when I decided to recommit my life to the Lord. And when I decided to say, take me off of this emotional roller coaster, I took sex off the menu. I said, I don't want to. And I started to, practice celibacy. And I said that, and remain abstinence, because I wanted to be able to be in a relationship and sex not be something that helped it to stay, or you stayed in a place longer than you were supposed to stay. And so for me, what that did was gave me clarity of mindset. When I saw red flags, or if I said something to another person about something that was going on, and not always correcting them, but also seeing the things within me that needed to be worked on, I was able to do that with a clear head. And so some of those things, those are just some of the things from my life that I had to learn. But at the same time, I had to start to build myself up, where there was no positive, speaking into my life. I had to start to be the voice to positively speak for myself and encourage myself. And so those are things that helped me to see, to not stay in places that no longer served me. And so I had to learn that, and I try to teach that to my, not only, the girls that I work with my nonprofit, but then also to my sons, because I never want them to be in a place where they're settling for something, or they're in something just because they think that this is all that they can have. And so I feel, very led oftentimes to share, my stories with them, because I want them to have a high self-esteem of knowing what they deserve and what they can have. But knowing, I always tell them to, I know my teenager, he gets tired of me saying it now, I want you to love yourself first. I want you to learn how to love yourself first. And he was like, Mom, I love myself, but I don't want him to get into anything where he feels like I'm just going to be in it because this is what everybody else is doing. Because if it doesn't feel right to you, then you don't need to be there. And of course, me being the mom now, I'm very active in their life. I want to know, who is this person? Who was her parents? Is she encouraging you, or is she empowering you? And so I take that, teaching them from my past mistakes, but also letting them know that I made mistakes, but I learned from my mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And and that's important when you learn. And I think that's really the point of this topic, really, is being able to learn and imploring those thoughts and those lessons that people learn to someone else that doesn't know yet. Or because sometimes it's young people, and then it's sometimes just people our age. And I remember some years ago, just in case she listens to this show, I won't really shout her out, but I remember I had a friend, very close, very, very close friend of mine, was just engaged in some unnecessary lifestyles. And I remember somehow we got into a discussion about things she was doing, and I said something, but I said it in a way that was very to the point, but it wasn't drastic enough for her to get her feelings hurt. But at the end of what I said, it hit her, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm a hoe." That's what she said. And she was in shock. And I didn't say that to her, but the way that I expressed what she was doing, it opened her eyes. And she said to me, "Wow, all these years, I never thought about it." And she said, "It honestly took a man to tell me in order for me to understand the dynamics of the lifestyle that I was living." So sometimes people, they know, but they don't know. So when you can learn, it's important to share with those who may not understand, but are at least willing to listen, because they may not get it today, but tomorrow, that's another day for them to get it. So I've definitely received that, what you just said, and I value it. Yeah, Jim. All right. So you heard us talking until now. So you're on the clock. Please jump right in. What do you have?
Thank you. Both of your life experiences are similar to mine, but I just have like one, I guess for my personal experience or something of this sort. With you and LaDonna, especially with standing your ground, come to realization. My realizations came in the form of, I guess, guidance from religious institutions. I used to hang out in a church youth group when I was younger. And it was through them I was able to realize that my avoidance theory was not very beneficial. I was too awkward socially. I didn't like being around people. And, Jonathan automatically knew how I was, because, he pointed that out. And, I usually try, my closed attitude is just keeps, it's easy to read me after knowing that. But it was just, I just didn't like people, and I liked being alone. I always did things alone. I explored the city by myself in high school. I was a loner. It was just the opposite for me. I had to realize how to integrate myself with other people, especially people at different views and things like that. Jonathan knows me very well, so he knows if certain situations don't jive with me, I will automatically excuse myself, and I will definitely be vocal about it and say, I don't like this. This is not my scene. But, I had to give it a chance. Those type of things, I had to give it a chance. It's not like, I didn't, I gave it and didn't work out. I just never did. So with that type of reversal, it was hard. It was harder for me to open up because I was always so closed. And that's my reverse. That's actually my reversal. Similar, but it's reversed. I had to integrate myself with, I won't even say society, but we went people in my own age group. I really couldn't identify with them. And I had to, I wouldn't say lower myself, but to say I had to find common ground to say, I can converse with you, I can talk with you, I can be relaxed around you. And that was what I had to go through. It was tough. It's tough when you're alone and you do stuff alone and you got to integrate yourself. That's one of the most hardest things I ever did in my life.
So Jim, I just want to tell you, you need to really discipline that GPS over there, just talking over you the whole time and interrupting you while you're talking. You need to tell that GPS to be polite and put some respect on your name.
All right, no problem.
All right, Donnie. So you heard Donna Marie and myself, we kind of talked about how insecurities plays a part in terms of not really discerning and paying attention and taking action. And then you've heard Jim's perspective. What is your perspective on these things?
I had an experience in this, but it took me seeing someone else with a vastly more extreme version of it to really get it. I've definitely noticed, I think LaDonna might have mentioned this, like this idea of a person not thinking they can get better or anything else or whatever it is. I think that's honestly one of the biggest things. Oftentimes the example I was going to speak on, one of my friends had previously had more abusive relationships in various ways. So when she came to have I'm going to call it a mediocre relationship, mm-hmm. She was settling for it because it was in some way better than what she had in the past, because it was like any improvement, she stuck with it and felt that she wasn't going to get any better since what she was used to was so much worse. I think people get caught up in their head a lot on things like that. I think people need to be clear that whoever you're with now is not a reflection of who you could be with later or what you can do or where your limits are, anything like that. I think people put a little bit too much value in that sort of thing. And as I said, it really took me seeing someone else go through worse to kind of break that down for myself.
Yeah, that can
Look,
happen. Go ahead,
I have
Jim.
one question. Now, I want to ask Ladonna and
Mhm.
Donnie about this. When you say when you feel like you couldn't be better, was that internally you realized that you felt that way, or was outside influences saying that you can't do better than this person, or you're going to get better than this person? Was that a voice talking to you, or was that outside influence mostly?
In my experience, and also in my experience specifically, it was sort of an internal thing, because when you kind of get, for lack of a better word, stuck in a relationship, there's also like a degree of like romanticizing it, like regardless of whatever is bad about it. So you kind of like wipe away all of the bad stuff and you are idolizing this person in your head. So when you sit down and you're like, oh, who else could I go to? This person's like so great in your head. So it's hard to separate.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha,
and
thanks.
for me, it was outside, I guess like outside advice. And I had to learn you just really can't take advice from other people, because like I said, even as a young 14-year-old, and even as a I've always had a mature level. I've been mature. So my perspective, I would always voice my perspective, but then other people be like, well, no, you can't do that, or you doing this too much. So it was outside influence. And so even for me back then, I was like going between my surroundings and what I really knew was true. So for me, it became a battle within myself, like whose side do I take? Because for me, I always knew that I wanted better. I knew that, greatness was for me, and the person that was going to be with me, we were going to treat each other right. It was going to be a good thing. But for the outside, some people were like, no, you just settle for this. And I think that was like the enemy's plan to, get me to settle, to not be or go for like the person, or even just in the mindset of what I know to be true. And so for me, it was most likely external. But then as I began to be isolated, because I didn't really have anybody else that thought on the way that I thought, then finally I said, well, maybe I should just, lower my standards. Like maybe I should just. And then once I did that, that was even horrible. And then it's like after I did that, I began to see the light. I was like, no, this is not a place that I am even comfortable with being, or these are not circumstances that I would ever even want to be in. And so I kind of like, the Lord kind of like said, you can't be like everybody else, and you can't take advice from everybody else. And so for me, I just decided to listen to the one and true voice and tone out all the bad advice and keep, moving forward.
Satisfied,
Okay,
Jim?
thanks.
You digested?
Yeah, yes. It was a good difference between the analogies between both their experiences. Yes.
And I'll be honest. I would say a lot of relationships are done that in that fashion, where sometimes when you get somebody that you really like, or everybody likes, or because a similar situation happened to me, and I know the girlfriend that I had, all of the guys wanted to be her boyfriend. So when she was like, oh, all these guys like me, but I'll date you, I accepted every crap that she pulled on me for a long time. Like, she cheated on me on occasions, and I even came outside of myself to satisfy her, because there was a situation where you're doing too much there with your phone, Jen. But for example, sex, and I talk about this in a previous episode. And when we got together, I wasn't interested in having sexual activity, but she was interested in having sex. And like LaDonna Marie said, well, here's the thing. Do I say no? And then it doesn't work out, and then I get dumped, and she goes with another guy, and she does it with the other guy, because in my heart, I loved her. And, my insecurity oh, I'm not gonna find anyone else like her, because she was it. She was beautiful. She was intelligent. Like I said, all the guys liked her. When the first time that I met her, 4 guys wanted to talk to her. And I'll never forget. And she didn't even notice me the first time we met. I remember we met, we went to an outing, it was a teen outing, and we were there, and it was called Action Park. It was a water park. And I saw her, and all the guys like, oh yeah, she's cute, I want to talk to her. So all these guys were trying to talk to her. So then I didn't, I spoke to her, but then finally my sister knew that I liked her. My sister was like, oh, my brother likes you. So I was very awkward looking at the time. So, when you're awkward and, I was shy. So when she was like, oh, I like him, first thing I almost did is almost passed out for her to say that she liked me. So when you have a situation like that, when you've already submitted the upper hand to somebody because you don't want them to leave you, you end up ignoring all of the negative things, because you're like, if I break up with this girl here, who's the next person that I go out with? And I can guarantee you, forgive me if you're listening to this, the next girlfriend that I had was definitely a big time drop off from her. But that can't be your reason to get into relationships or not get out of them. You know what I mean? It can't be because, oh, the next person is not going to be as good. Listen, that happens in life. Sometimes you get highs and lows. You get a really good person, then you can get a really bad person. Nothing is guaranteed in life. And those are odds that no one should play, that you compromise yourself just for the sake of being with somebody that you really want to be with, especially if they're not good for you. So I also want to go to this next topic, and that's, I think, one of our firmest discussions, and that's talking about dysfunction. And a lot of times dysfunction plays a part in us ignoring red flags. And I'll explain in my perspective, dysfunction actually made me hold on to relationships longer than I should have, because I didn't want to label myself as a failure. So when you see your parents, they failed at their marriage, their relationship, I didn't want to be the person that was like, I'm going to fail at the relationship. You try to do better. And even sometimes you try to do better when you shouldn't have. So I've seen the relationships through them, through siblings who did some really messed up things to people that they were with. So I was like, I'm going to formulate my relationship opposite of what these people did. And guess what? The problem with that is, when you don't want to be a failure and don't want to fail at something, you end up trying hard sometimes in things you should never try that hard to begin with. And that happened to me. When I tell you, whoa, that next relationship after that first girlfriend that I told you about was that kind of relationship where I shouldn't have dedicated the energy to that person, but because I didn't want failure to occur, because I didn't want to be like, I don't want to be like my mother and father. I don't want to be like this sibling. I don't want to be like that sibling. So I went way out of my way to make a relationship work that I should have cut off immediately and didn't. And that was one of the worst times in my life ever, because I went through hell trying to be this unconditional loving boyfriend when the person didn't even deserve to chew the gum on the bottom of my sneaker. And when I tell you, that's how bad this girlfriend was. She was totally horrible to me, uncaring, unrepentant in anything that she did to spite or hurt me. It's incredible now that I look at it as an adult that I put myself through that just for the dysfunction in my life, to say I wasn't a failure at relationships. All right, now I'm going to be quiet for these couple of minutes, and I'm going to let Dawn Marie get in here, and we're going to talk about dysfunction, if she have any thoughts on that and how that can play a role in people not paying attention to red flags.
Yeah, I can totally talk about this situation, because we always talk about it. And I can say firsthand from my life, because I don't want people to always feel like, we're generalizing, but for the most part, I understand. I take a reflective look at my life. I got a whole lot of journals that I've kept over my life. I want to tell you that most of the time dysfunction does sneak in is when you're not healed, when you have wounds that are open, or when you may not even know that they're open. Because I know we talk so many times about, like, if you live in a home where there's physical abuse going on daily, when you grow up, you probably think that that's something that's supposed to go on. You know what I'm saying? Because that was normal for your household, or whether it's, you know what I'm saying, cursing at your kids, you know what I'm saying? Like you think that, oh, that's normal, you know what I'm saying, in my household. And this is just me being general, but getting back to what I'm saying, the dysfunction part about not healing. I can say for myself, even in like I said, in Lesson Shadow Pieces Being Restored, there's a part in there called Growing Pains, and then there's also a part in there called Mandy was Misconceptions of Love. And the thing about it is, in her mindset, she had love. She looked at love in a different way. It wasn't the way that it was supposed to, because it was out of her own, what she knew. It was out of everything that she knew. So she only had the vision of what was in front of her, because she was not healed, and because this is what she saw directly in her own life. And so she began to welcome it in her life. She began to say, okay, well, I guess this is okay, and making excuses for things because she didn't know any better. And not knowing a different way. And so dysfunction really does take it puts a weight on things. And that's the reason why we always say you're not supposed to go into relationships 50-50. You're supposed to go into them 100-100, because you have to be a whole complete person yourself, coming into the relationship with another complete person, knowing that you're going to have some things that you have to work out. But in that dating time, if you still have dysfunctions, then you're not dating for discovery. You're already dating just for the relationship, just to be in the relationship. And so when you discover the things that you see in the beginning, you're not so ready to let them go, because you're not healed, and you still have some things you're hurt, or you have some disappointments, or some things that you haven't ironed out yet, and you're going to put that responsibility on the other person. I can say for myself, speaking into just like with my marriage, and I don't really, with my last marriage, but when we got into our relationship, we both said that we wanted to heal from the things that had went on in our childhood. And we had that mindset that we were both going to heal. But I want to tell you that once we got into, because we got married young, once we got into the marriage, I started to heal, and he did not. And so it almost became, as we got into the relationship, then I could see how unequally yoked we were. Because where I wanted to heal and close chapters and close doors and, confront things and not sweep them under the rug, just with me, myself, and I don't think that he was at that level of wanting to do that. So we, essentially, our dysfunction was at different heights, but I was healing and he was standing still. And so we were able to see that this was not a place that we needed to be, because he wasn't ready to take the journey, and I wasn't ready to stay in the same place. And so anytime dysfunction can really, really, put a damper on a relationship or any type of situationship, anything, is when you do not heal from the things that have gone on in your life. And that's even writing it down. We talked about going to a therapist. We talked about having, a pastor or somebody that you could talk to, balancing what you have gone through off of a reality outside of somebody else, outside of your situation. Because if you grow up in something, most times people don't. Sometimes you will only be looking out of the lens of what you have gone through. And I can say for me in my situation, I became a therapist, after I had my stint with suicide, and after I felt like I didn't want to be on this earth. When the Lord and I started walking this journey, and he began to heal me, and he had me to look at myself, because he always showed me who he wanted me to be. Although my surroundings was trying to tell me something different, he always let me know who I was. And so I had to make the essential choice to believe what God says about me and not my surroundings. But I also I went into social work. I went into getting 2 masters in counseling studies and 1 in professional counseling, because I want to help people who are stuck in those types of situations so that they could learn something different, so that they could step outside of the dysfunction of what they knew to try to grow into someone and stretch into the person that they were created to be, with all of the other things dropping off. And so that's my spiel.
All right, Jim. So you're gonna have to go after that now, because I'm not saying anything. That was deep right there. So what you got, Jim? He frozen now. Look at that. You froze him. You froze him, Don Marie. Froze it up like a robot. Jim, you there?
I understand. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. You're kind of in and out, but try to see where you can sneak in there until you freeze
Gotcha.
up again.
You know what the problem was, is that partially for me, I knew my dysfunction partially. And then the partial part was my dysfunction was personified in a person. And I don't blame her for, a lot of things, but I didn't want people involved in my dysfunction. I didn't want them meeting a big part of my dysfunction, which was my mother. And I basically was like, so for me, it was like, I had to do a couple step process. One was confront my parents, besides my mother, and then, my father too as well. And then secondly, I had to accept that I was not going to get the answers, so many answers that I wanted or that I needed to hear. But the fact that they managed to surely convey what was wrong and what was my questions and stuff like that, I had to accept it and heal from that and move on from that, because you're not going to get the answers to every of your questions, and the answers is not based on what you want to hear. It's basically what you can get. And once you realize that that's the best you're going to get from them, you can take that and move on, or you can still be bitter. And some people will still be bitter over it. And I don't, that wasn't me. So once I realized that
Oh, now you're sounding drunk over there, Jim.
I accepted it and moved on from it. I was able.
You got a really bad reception over there, Jim. We're gonna have to cut you off. First, you started off like Ja Rule. Now now your speech is slurred. It sounds like you got drunk over there. You froze it again. So we're gonna have to chop you up for a minute. Hopefully, you'll get back to better reception.
I do.
All right. Are you there? Yeah, he's you froze out again.
All right. I'll go to Donnie, then come back to me.
All right. Okay. All right, Donnie. So you kind of heard Jim over there. Sounded like Ja Rule talking about whatever Ja Rule talked about. Anyway, go ahead, Donnie. You're muted.
Yeah, that whole Megatron situation just threw me way off balance. Please give me a little bit of direction so I can get back on page.
So basically, we were talking about dysfunction and how dysfunction leads to people often missing red flags and being able to identify things that are not healthy for them in relationships, and sometimes excuse bad behavior when they shouldn't.
I remembered what I was going to say. Great. Okay. Yeah. One thing that I've seen personally is when people have dysfunction within themselves that they are aware of, but maybe they're unsure of how to work on it, or maybe they don't want to, or whatever the circumstances are, they then start justifying staying with people who are showing blatant red flags because they think, well, I have my own stuff, so I should just deal with it. And while there's something to be said about holding your own dysfunction and not working on it or working through it in any productive way, it's also not an excuse to settle for less, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. So settling is something that we've talked about deeply today. And yeah, I would want to get in, but I kind of want to talk about this point right here. And I think maybe we'll close out and talking about settling. But I want to talk about this because to me, this is a big problem when we talk about people with the red flags and not learning from these red flags, not being able to read them, understand them. And that's a lack of reflection. So a lot of times people fail to reflect on themselves. And when you talk about red flags, a lot of times people don't want to see the red flags is because they don't see the red flags in themselves. And that's a big reason why we miss so many red flags is because we miss the red flags in ourselves. We miss the things that put us in position to accept bad relationships, that we don't investigate. We don't look at ourselves in the mirror and see the things that are bad about us, that allow us to accept bad things and fix the things that are wrong with us so that we can easily see things in front of us. And that's a reality right there because many of us, the reason why so many people have to fall down every rung of the ladder of life is because people they don't identify the rungs in front of them. Oh, I got to do one at a time. You want to get up the ladder, but you're not looking at the rungs to climb. Try climbing a ladder blindfolded. You can't get to the top that way. It's very difficult. I mean, the ladder may fall back. You may fall off the ladder. So the point here is you really have to see yourself for who you are. You understand your value, to other people in terms of what you're bringing forth, projecting to people and the people that you're attracting. So if you can't reflect on yourself, it makes it very difficult to see the things that you need to see in other people when they're not healthy for you. So Jim, I'm kind of going to just give up on whatever we were talking about previously for the sake of time and just come into this round and drop into LaDon Marie and then come back to you on this topic. Okay.
No problem. On top of your part there, yes, a lot of people do not realize their dysfunction because either they think it's normal or two, it doesn't benefit anyone but themselves. So in that retrospect, I don't know.
Jim, I'll say we was skipping over that part.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
I thought it was the part that I missed.
No.
All right.
I said we going into the next topic. That's the lack of reflection there.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to LaDon Marie's. I want.
Go ahead and let him go ahead and get his out. Go ahead, Jim. Talk about reflection.
Yeah. So with that, some people have to be insensitized to reflect. Like what Donnie said, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. Sometimes it's, something has to go sideways for a person to really reflect. And, unfortunately, you shouldn't have to reach that type of low point. But if they are enabled or have bad influences around them for not to reflect, people are not going to do it until, they hit a point that they have no choice but to do so. And, it's hard to say that people can't learn. Sometimes people do learn through making a mistake once or twice, but most people don't do that. They keep making the same mistakes over and over and over until it negatively affects them in a way that either it's going to be hard for them to bounce back, or it takes a person that they don't listen to or they wouldn't normally go to for them to bounce back. And it's getting outside that comfort zone that really allows you to see things that you did not see before. And that took me, that's why I had to get out of a comfort zone. Well, I mean a comfort zone, but a zone that was not beneficial to even to myself. You think that it is, but it's not. So for that, that's really was just what I wanted to say about, about the reflection part. It's just that for some people, most of the parties, for people I know, it takes get to a very low point that, the people that would help them can't do it or won't do it. And they have to go to a person that, they normally won't go to make them reflect that, geez, I have to go to this person or I have to do something that I won't say normally was done before, but something I should have done from a long time ago, from a while back.
Okay. I just want to say your dog turned into a woman in the background.
Yes, they had a dog out. Yes.
Is that Turtle?
Yes, Turtle came along.
All right, LaDonna Marie. All right. So, excuse me, I'm cracking up over here. Go ahead.
Right. You just with the jokes cracking up. But yeah, reflection is people. I think that sometimes people don't want to do a reflection because they really don't want to look at themselves. And I mean, of course, I got a book called Mirror Conversations. And I wrote that book because in order for us to grow, in order for us to actually, move, we have to be able to take a look at ourselves, and who we are, our choices, and the things that we decide to do. As Jim was talking, it is okay for people to make mistakes, because I do tell my children, that you will make some mistakes. But the thing about it, when it no longer becomes a mistake, is when you continue to do it, it becomes a lifestyle, because it's a choice. If you've done something, like one time, or you've done it, maybe I can say you could do two, you've made a mistake. But if you continue to do it, has become a choice, and it is your lifestyle, because it's no longer a mistake if you know better. It's just you're not choosing better. And because when you decide that you don't want to do something, reflections, you have to look in the mirror to be able to know, what will I do different this time? If the situation came back to me, as I make a reflection of where I came to now where I am, my choices have to be different. When you like, they always tell you, you don't do a 360 turn, you do a 180. If I was walking down a path that was, dangerous, or if I was walking down something and I was making bad choices, if I wanted to transform my life and I wanted to make a change, then I'm going to make a 180 so that I can head in a different direction. Because if I make a 360, I'm going to turn around and end up right where I started. I'm going to be going in the same direction. And so I think that sometimes people do not want to put their own selves in the hot seat. But I can't say that's never been that's never been something that I can say for myself, because I do that a lot. I always put myself in a hot seat. There's a scripture in the Bible says, when I tell the Lord to search me, oh Lord, to know my thoughts and to know my anxieties. And if there's anything that is within me that is not like you, then take it out. Because I want you to help me to purge away the things that is not going to help me in my next level, to purge away the things that were in one relationship that I did that I need to fix before I get into another relationship. So for me, like I said earlier, I write down a whole lot of stuff that's never gotten into a book, because I started out journaling at the age of 12. I was journaling probably like 2 years before I ever began to write, because I really want to see myself. And even when I talked about that book, Mirror Conversation, it was never what I looked like. It was never standing in the mirror to see your face or to see your eyeshadow or the lip chap, but it was to actually look on the inside, to look at who you are, to look at a reflection of your patterns that are in your life. And so a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't want to open up their own can of worms. But we have to know that we all have, different situations and things that we go through that we have to focus on. If you want them to be better, then you have to do something about them. I know I talked about sometimes, even for me, last year, I was asking the Lord to, purge me. And for me, I was always a person who I really don't like confrontation. I didn't never like confrontation. I'm like, not like in this time, because back in the day, I was a knuck if you buck type person. I had a swift attitude. But as I, began to walk this journey, I just didn't really like confrontations, but the Lord had to help me to understand it in a different way. Because for me, I cannot push under the rug some things that need to be talked about. So for me, I just have to find a way to talk to it. If it was a, if it's a hostile environment, or if the other person is being hostile, then I can't shy away from not saying what I want to be said. I just have to find a way to, to say it. And so even for me, it's not always in dating relationships, but it's even in, saying relationships with your friends or with coworkers or different things like that. You have to take a reflection of how you show up, because it's not just your words, but it's your deeds. It's what you do. It's more than, because sometimes people will say, do as I say and not as I do. But I never wanted my children to do that. I want you to do what I do and what I say, because I'm going to model what needs to be, done, because I've taken the time to reflect. I've taken the time to look at the things, and I'm not extra critical, and I'm not condemning myself, but I'm modifying myself so that I can be the greater me, so I can be the best version of me. So when we do reflections, I think we don't need to look at it as we're, saying like chopping ourselves out or condemning yourself to say you should know better this time, you should do better. But I think it's just saying, this is where I am, and this is where I need to go, and these are the steps that I need to take.
All right, Donnie. So finally we're at you, and then we'll just kind of finish up here. And what do you have now?
Yeah. I was just thinking about how much of a slippery slope things like a lack of reflection can lead to. And here's what I was thinking about. I figure if you can't reflect on yourself, it's going to end with you glorifying all of your behavior. So whatever negative stuff you do, it's all good, it's all fine. And when you do that, that means when you're going forward into the world and someone is treating you in the same crappy way, you're going to view that as normal, or even worse than that, good. And then you will end up in a cycle of relationships, or staying in the same relationship, and thinking there's some sort of merit to it because it's that same poor behavior you weren't able to recognize in yourself.
Oh, that's pretty good. And those are definitely words to live by. So that's pretty much going to be it for this conversation. I hope everyone got the point of what we were discussing today, and is really just paying attention to what's going on in your life and around it. And the best way, the best view of red flags is what can happen to someone else can happen to you. So I know it's hard because when you meet people, it always feels so right, even when it's wrong. But the number one thing that you have to pay attention to is what is going on with the person's life when they're not around you, or with other people, because it's very easy to see. And you have to remember, first and foremost, if somebody can engage in negative lifestyles, that can always be you. Because like LaDonna Marie said earlier, when you talk about feelings that you think is love, but is really lust, once that focus is not on you, the dynamics change. And of course, that's the same thing with relationships. Once you get past the point where the person doesn't have that infatuation with you, the nature of the relationship changes. So you got to really be mindful of that. You got to be mindful of your past, your life that you're living, and the things that you like. Are they healthy? Are they not? What does your lifestyle consist of? And is it really healthy for yourself? And is it healthy for other people? Because we can often focus on what other people do to us, but we really need to focus on what we do to ourselves, what we do to other people, and what we let people do to us. So with that being said, LaDonna Marie, could you just give your website for those who would like to get copies of whatever shirts or books or whatever that you may have for sale, and then we'll just head out from there.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been awesome being on this broadcast and podcast with you all today. My website is www.ladonnamarie.org. You can go over to the shop page and find all of your personal development, spiritual growth needs.
And there you go. And of course, there's no website for Jim, Donnie, and myself, but you can catch us on Instagram. That's The Truth Is Still Straight, and that's The Truth Is Still STR8. And of course, you can catch us on Anchor if you're not already listening there. And we're on Apple, Google, and Spotify. With that, enjoy the rest of your evening, day, week, year, whatever it is that you're living. Goodbye, folks.
Take care.
Take care, everyone.